My husband's first love passed away, and he asked me to adopt her daughter. In a moment of weakness, I agreed and she ended up with my son. Even my husband's gaze towards her seemed off. When I asked her to leave, my husband and son acted together and ended my life. My son said, "No one can stop us from being together." When I woke up again, I firmly refused to adopt. I don't want them, not one of them. Without my money, let's see how they live their lives. Wife, Vivian is so pitiful, can we adopt her? Mike said in a low voice. The little girl had dimples, very cute. She looked at me timidly, then suddenly knelt down. Auntie, please, don't send me to the orphanage. I eat very little, and I can do chores. Please don't make me leave, she begged. My head was pounding. The tragic scenes from my past life flashed before me. Back then, I didn't take it seriously. Mike's first love was already dead. The child was innocent. It was just about having an extra pair of chopsticks. I kindly adopted Vivian, gave her a comfortable life, but she seduced my son. She was becoming more like his first love, and Mike's gaze became more unsettling. I just told Vivian to leave the US, but they conspired and killed me. They inherited my estate, lived lovingly together, while I was merely a stepping stone to their relationship heating up. Vivian acted too innocent in front of me, until it was too late for me to realize. I rubbed my temples, smiling as I looked at the little girl kneeling on the ground. Mike, let's get a divorce. Vivian was stunned for a moment, then she bowed deeply. She hit her forehead a couple of times, blood started flowing. If the tragic scenes from my past weren't still vivid, maybe I would have softened again. But as mothers, we can't stand for such things. Now, I sit expressionless on the couch, not stopping them. Mike grabs Vivian, who's still bowing. His face is full of disbelief. Susan, how can your heart be so cold? She's just an 8-year-old girl without parents. Can't you be more generous? Generous? I was too generous in the past life. That's why I ended up dead. I looked at Mike and calmly said, she's not my daughter. Why should I be generous? If you want to raise her, go ahead. It's none of my business. Vivian wiped her tears, pitifully saying, Uncle Mike, I don't want to be a bad girl. I don't want you to divorce because of me. Just send me to the orphanage. As long as you two are happy, I can be anywhere. An 8-year-old girl saying this would usually soften anyone's heart. But my heart was full of anger. I clenched my thighs tightly with my hands, afraid I would lose control and slap them to death. Mike patted Vivian's head. Vivian, be good. Uncle will give you a warm home. He looked at me. Wife, you like daughters, right? Vivian is just right. Don't worry. I'll work hard to support you both in the future. Mike's job was still arranged by my family, earning only $8,000 a month. How could he support a family? If not for his attractive face, would I even look at him? I took a deep breath. Mike, I like daughters. If I have any, I'll give birth myself. I haven't stooped so low as to have someone else raise my daughter. I'm not that generous and I'll never agree. Vivian cried softly. Mike looked at me angrily, a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Does he want to kill me now to inherit my estate? I don't know what he's thinking, but I'm not willing to gamble. I grabbed my bag next to me, ready to leave. Mike coldly said, if you leave, don't bother coming back. That's fine by me. I don't want to be with them for another minute. Just as I got up to leave, my son came back. He smiled. Mom, I heard I have a beautiful little sister. Looking at his face, I remembered the scene from the past life, when he held a cleaver and attacked me. My body trembled. I couldn't feel any motherly love for him. I can't forgive him. Eric pushed me aside, looking at Vivian in surprise. Sister, why are you crying? There's blood on your forehead. Who hit you? Tell me, I'll avenge you, he said. Vivian glanced at me, then quickly looked down. Brother, I'm fine, she said. Eric suddenly jumped up, looking at me with reproach in his eyes. Mom, don't bully my sister in the future. She's the youngest in our family. We all need to take care of her. I smiled. I don't deserve it. Seeing Eric's behavior, I knew they had met before. In his heart, I might not even compare to half of Vivian's pinky finger. They were a family, yet I forced them to be together in my past life. Eric, I plan to divorce your dad. Who do you want to be with? Eric looked shocked. Why do you want to divorce? I don't agree. Dad is so handsome. Why do you want a divorce? I don't know who put these thoughts in his head. Is being handsome now the be-all and end-all? Even if he's handsome, he's over 30, with a beer belly, just a greasy middle-aged man. I felt helpless. Feelings have faded. It's up to you who you want to be with, me or him. Eric shouted loudly, if you really want a divorce, I will hate you. I don't want to stay with a heartless person like you. Mike coldly snorted, yes, if you're getting a divorce, Don't think about taking our son and leave with nothing. He was sure I wouldn't give up my son. Dream on. I don't want my son. Not a single penny of my money should be missing. But I can't stay here. Who knows when they might lose control. I don't want to argue with them. I turned to leave. I went to the law firm, made a will, leaving all my belongings to my parents. Also asked about how to quickly get a divorce without losing out. Money really isn't spent in vain. They have numerous ways to transfer assets. Leaving the firm, I bought a bunch of things and went back to my parents' house. Opening the door, I saw those 3 people sitting on the living room couch, leisurely eating fruits. Seeing me come back, Mike smiled and said, "Darling, Mom and Dad both sympathize with Vivian a lot. They support adopting her, so we'll be a family from now on." Looking at my parents, sympathy was written all over their faces. It seemed like Vivian's act of playing the victim had been very successful. Shaking my head, I pointed at the little girl and said, "She is Mike's first love's daughter, and I won't accept that. And I've already decided to divorce him." My parents didn't look too happy. Mike definitely hadn't told them about Vivian's identity. Mike sighed, "Mom, what does it matter if she's my first love? She's dead now. Why bother with someone who's already gone? Vivian is innocent. She's still a child." I hated hearing that. So what if she's a child? Some children are just born bad, not deserving of sympathy. Raising an eyebrow, I said to Mike, "Don't you understand human language?" I said, "If you want to raise her, go ahead. No one is stopping you. But don't drag me into taking responsibility with you. I'm petty. I don't even want my own biological son, let alone the daughter of my husband's first love." Mike stared at me in shock, as if he never expected me to say such things. Vivian started crying softly, looking very puzzled. Eric glanced at Vivian, then angrily looked at me. "Mom, how did you become so mean? If you keep this up, when you're old, I'll just send you to a nursing home." So ironic, in the past life, he killed me himself. If only I could send him to a nursing home, I wouldn't have hated him so much. I said calmly, "Don't worry, after divorcing your dad, I'll have a few more kids. You don't need to worry about the future. Mike's genes aren't good enough. I'll just pick some good ones from a sperm bank." Eric, looking shocked, said, "Mom, do you even know what you're saying? Are you crazy?" He turned to Mike, "Dad, I'm sure Mom has gone crazy. Let's send her to a mental hospital. That way, nobody can stop us from adopting our sister." As soon as Eric finished speaking, the air fell silent. My parents, who had some hesitation before, suddenly turned dark-faced. This child is still too young. If he whispers this idea to Mike, they might actually do it. Having gone through what happened in the past life, nothing they do would surprise me. My father slapped Eric across the face. "What do you think you are? Daring to send my daughter to a mental hospital? If I had known you were this kind of scum, I would have had Susan abort you. Who does he think he is? Can my daughter be bullied by you? Get out of here." Eric covered his face, crying loudly. Glaring at my father fiercely, Eric said, "You old man, how dare you hit me? You have only one daughter, and your daughter only has one son. How dare you hit me?" My father's face turned even darker, and he slapped him twice again. In recent years, I have been busy with work, and Mary has been taking care of Eric. I don't know who has instilled these thoughts into his mind. Eric cried loudly, but he dared not insult me again. Vivian trembled, wiping away her tears. "Grandpa, it's all my fault. Don't hit my brother. I'll go to the orphanage soon." Mike hugged Vivian and turned to me. "Susan, you make me sick. You're even harsh to your own biological son. You're a wicked woman." I slapped Mike across the face. "Think again, Mike. I had been wanting to hit him, and now he came to my territory, so I had no choice." Mike stood up abruptly, looking at me coldly. "Susan, you've really lost it," he said, raising his hand to hit me. Unfortunately, my father blocked it, and my mother ran over. Without saying a word, my mother slapped him twice. My father coldly said, "Mike, you're the one who's lost it. If you want to be a good guy, no one's stopping you. But if you force my daughter to do something she dislikes, you should die." Eric ran over, swinging his fist, smashing it hard into my stomach. "Evil person, evil woman. I don't want you to be my mom," he said. I stood still on purpose, waiting for him to make a scene. If he didn't, I would have had to persuade my parents. I held my stomach, frowning. My father slapped Eric across the face. "Unfilial child, hitting your own mother. You will be struck by lightning when you go out. Get out of here." My father said to my mother, "Call the police and send them to prison. Don't let them cause any more trouble." Vivian ran over, knelt with a bang. "Please, don't call the police. We'll leave right away. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have bothered Uncle Mike. I'll go to the orphanage right now," she said. "Here we go again. So annoying." I said coldly, "Whether to come or not, kneel down. Your mom taught you well. Get out." I don't want to see you. Mike took Vivian's hand, glaring at me fiercely. Susan, you'll regret this. The three of them left hand in hand, with Vivian walking in the middle, showing a strong protective stance. After closing the door, my parents sat around me. Seeing the concerned look in their eyes, I couldn't hold it back. I threw myself into my mom's arms and cried loudly, feeling wronged, scared, emotions running wild. Mom gently patting my back. It took a while before I stopped crying. The suffocation in my heart seemed to dissipate a bit. Dad touched my head. Susan, we welcome you back home anytime. Yeah, I still have a home, those two mean nothing. At night, I insisted on sleeping with Mom, and Dad reluctantly agreed. The next day, I was woken up by Mike's call. I chatted with Mom too late last night, and kept thinking about how to get rid of Mike at night, tossing and turning unable to sleep. Until the third call, I finally answered slowly. Susan, you did this on purpose about my job, right? Why have you turned so bad? Do you really want to divorce me? Job. I didn't expect Dad to act so fast. I just mentioned it yesterday, and he already remembered. Mike's job was originally arranged by my family. Reclaiming it now isn't a big deal. Why is he so worked up? I rubbed my eyes. Well, whenever you're free, let's go get the divorce certificate. Mike's enraged voice came through. Susan, you're asking for it. I will not divorce. Only be a widower. I chuckled softly. Widower is not a bad suggestion. Since you don't want to divorce, then I'll be a widow. You dare. Mike's cold voice came through. I held the phone to my mouth, and in a deep voice said, let's give it a try then. His proposed widow act. I will certainly try to comply with it. After hanging up the phone, I squinted for a while before getting up. When I left the room, there were two handsome bodyguards standing in the living room. Mom waved at me. How do you like them? Your dad picked these bodyguards for you. I gave a thumbs up. Indeed, it was my real dad who picked ones I like. I was planning to hire 2 bodyguards in the afternoon, but didn't expect Dad to act so fast. Mom gently tapped my forehead. As long as you like them, you must pay attention to safety when you go out. I nodded obediently and went to the company with the 2 bodyguards. I needed to handle the transfer of property quickly. That scumbag was cunning. It wouldn't be easy to get rid of him. A week later, I was in the office with my dad when Mike's mom brought Eric over. Eric was dressed shabbily, with a dirty face. He ran to the front desk yelling loudly. In an instant, the whole company knew that I abused my son, bullied my husband's mom, and had affairs with several men. I immediately called the police. There was surveillance at the front desk. The evidence was sufficient. Mary wiped non-existent tears and said, Susan, how could you hit a child? He's only 10 years old. He's still a child. He's a flower. She was surrounded by many men. What will happen to my son? Dad coldly snorted. The spectators quickly left. Even the front desk slipped away. I crossed my arms and said calmly, Mary, say it again. How did I abuse you? Mary glanced at my dad and boldly said, you hit my grandson a few days ago. That's abuse. Behind you are 2 men. That's an affair. You are a wicked woman. I didn't make it up. Dad immediately slapped her. Mary lay on the ground, covering her face with her hands, kicking her feet. Help! Someone's being killed. Even a 70-year-old like me is being bullied. Mary, who claimed to be in her early 50s on normal days, now suddenly said she was 70. Dad stared coldly at her. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll slap you again. Mary glanced at Eric and signaled to him. Eric suddenly pounced on me, holding onto my thigh and crying, Mom, you can beat me as much as you want as long as you don't divorce. I won't resist. Great. I almost applauded him. Some things just shouldn't have come into existence. The bodyguards quickly pulled Eric away. One stood in front of me and the other held Eric back. Mary pointed at the bodyguards and cursed, bastard, you keep a gigolo by your side. Not just 1 but 2. Are you being fair to Mike? Dad gave her another slap. Your mouth is vile. You deserve to be slapped. Mary lay on the ground and started to act crazy. I looked at the bodyguards with a smile. You're doing great. Each of you will get a bonus of 2,000 this month. Mary went crazy, got up and wanted to hit me, but unfortunately the bodyguards protected me very well. I laughed even more happily seeing her like this. Your son said he wants to kill me. I was so scared. I hired 2 bodyguards. Still using the joint property. Mary was so angry that she was gasping for breath. I sighed, looking pale and mentally distressed. I asked the front desk to pull out the surveillance, pointing at Mary. Police officer, she's spreading false accusations about me in public. I want to sue her. Mary looked up, stubbornly saying, I'm your mother. So what if I scold you a few times? Your dad even slapped me twice. I want to sue your dad for causing intentional harm. Eric stood up, pointing at me, crying, you even hit me. I'll sue you for child abuse. Great, this troublemaker again. If it wasn't for the tragic lessons of the previous generation, making me immune to what he says. Now, I might be angry again by what he says. I calmly said. She cursed at me very harshly. That's why my dad hit her. As for him, I never hit him. You can check if he has any injuries. Eric immediately rolled up his sleeves, showing whip marks on his arms. He was willing to endure whipping just to frame me. What a good elder son. If I could go back to the time when I was pregnant with him, I would have aborted him immediately. Just one more second with him counts as my loss. I looked coldly at Eric and asked, when did I hit him? With what? How many times? Mary loudly declared, it was 3 days ago. I saw you hitting him with a chicken feather duster, and you beat him for half an hour. You evil woman, you even beat your own son. You deserve a terrible fate. Mary was trying to frame me. She even had a witness all planned out. I looked at her with a smirk and said, you watched me hit him. You love your grandson so much, but you didn't stop me. You just stood there watching your grandson being beaten, and didn't make a fuss. Mary's face instantly turned red. After a long while, she stammered, at that time, you were so furious, claiming he was yours, saying you could hit him if you wanted to. I couldn't stop you. My poor grandson. How could your mother be so heartless? Upon hearing Mary's words, Eric burst into tears uncontrollably, looking utterly pitiful. The police officer's expressions changed. Who says kids don't lie? Look how earnestly he's speaking. Even the cops are almost believing him. Dad stared at Eric sternly. He should have given up on this child by now. I said matter-of-factly, if he claims that I frequently hit him, then let's go to the hospital for a checkup. Can't just take their word for it. If this is acceptable, then I might as well start spreading rumors. Eric, being so young, got flustered by what I said. Mary stiffened her neck. Not going to happen. You're my daughter-in-law. A few scoldings shouldn't matter. This is a family matter. No one can interfere. I rolled my eyes. Last month, I saw you going to a hotel with that dancing old man. He even slipped you $100. I wonder if Mike's dad knows about it. He seems to be quite possessive. I've seen it multiple times. Mary was stunned, dumbfoundedly staring at me. After a while, she rushed towards me. Bitch. I'll rip your mouth apart for spreading lies. How dare you? I'll kill you. Unfortunately, she was held back tightly by the two officers. The police officers couldn't help but feel helpless. Susan, spreading rumors is against the law. I calmly took out my phone, showed them some photos. The $100 were particularly clear in the pictures. I did not falsely accuse her. I thought these could be useful in case of need. So I patiently took the photos, even noting down their entry and exit times. I reminded them a few times afterward. Mike's dad didn't care, and I didn't want to be the bad person. What if he has a particular preference? If it weren't for Mary's baseless rumors, I wouldn't have bothered to bring it up. Everyone has their secrets, right? Mary collapsed on the ground, weeping uncontrollably. This time she was really crying, I could tell. Pointing at Mary, I said with a smile, sir, I want to press charges against her for prostitution. Just as the words left my mouth, Mary jumped up. I didn't do it. Those photos are all doctored. I'll sue you. She started off speaking normally, but ended up shouting. Anyone with eyes could tell she definitely did something wrong. In the past few years, she helped me take care of Eric, and I gave her an allowance of $8,000 every month. Honestly, she wasn't poor, but for some reason, she coveted that $100. We all went to the police station together, and Mary kept muttering, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. But no one listened to her. She was taken to a small dark room for interrogation. Eric's eyes were almost burning with fury. He pointed at me and exclaimed, my mom abuses me. I want her in jail. Oh boy, this really frightened me. I said helplessly, he was raised by Mary, learned a lot of bad habits, and tells lies all the time. I really regret it. If I knew he would turn out like this, I wouldn't have borne him. Look at his bruises, they are fresh. I haven't been home these days. So who beat him? I hope you can help me find out. After all, he's still my son. Eric blushed, unable to come up with a response. In the end, he had to call Mike over. A smile involuntarily tugged at my lips. I was just so happy. Mike came over with Vivian. He didn't take it seriously at all, still beaming with a smile. Kim, I've lost my job. Your company won't stay afloat either. So, that's what he was thinking. I sighed. As you wish, the company has gone bankrupt. I mortgaged the house and car to the bank, plus accumulated $2 million in debts. I'm about to lose everything. Are you happy now? Mike's face darkened. He thought I was having fun outside these days. After a while, he regained his smile. Susan, you want a divorce, don't you? Give me $5 million and we'll divorce right away. Come on, the plan is all set, and I still have to pay him. I looked at him in shock. Mike, Do you only want to share wealth with me and not adversity? We are a couple, we should face debts together. Mike's face turned black. I continued to say, as a man, can't you bear a little hardship? Finally, I earnestly said, I don't want a divorce. I want to pay off our debts together. I've found many part-time jobs for you. Let's work hard and repay the debts together. Mike looked at me coldly. Susan, are you doing this on purpose? Without my consent, why did you mortgage the house and the car? Why should I help you repay your debts? I chuckled. The house and the car were assets acquired before the marriage. They've been living there for so long. I've already shown them enough face. With a sad expression, I said, didn't you say before that no matter what happens, you would face it with me? I nodded firmly. I will definitely make a comeback. Trust me. Now, bring out $1 million. Let's turn the tables together. Mike pushed me away, his face full of impatience. He quickly dealt with Eric's matter, shifting all the blame onto the child. Realizing I wouldn't give him a penny, he couldn't be bothered to waste any more time. The police officers lectured them, and only then did Mike remember his mother. Just as he was about to inquire, a group of elderly men walked in, the last one being his father. I had called Mike's father over. After all, he was the victim and had the right to know the truth. With a resigned expression, I said, Mike, you should give your mother more money in the future. At this age, she's still messing around with men. My voice was low, but it had a strong impact. Mike's father wanted to pull me aside to clarify things, but he was stopped by the bodyguards. Mike widened his eyes. Susan, what do you mean? Can you say such things randomly? We are still husband and wife, whether you believe it or not. With two tall bodyguards standing in front of me, Mike suddenly seemed so short. I pointed at the elderly men and began to provoke him. Mike, these are all your mother's clients. You can call them dad too. Sugar daddies are also dads. Mike clenched his fists and angrily slammed the wall. No way. My mom would never do such things. And who are these two men? You are my wife. If you cheat, I'll kill you. I smirked. I'm afraid you'll kill me. So I hired bodyguards. Mike glared at me fiercely. Trembling, Mike's father looked at me in disbelief. Susan, what are you talking about? We rarely interacted with this old man, but he had always been good to Mary. Some people just don't know how to appreciate it. Raising an eyebrow, I said, soon you'll know the truth. With that, I left with my men since there were more important things to attend to. We went to help them move out. It was all an act. The house had indeed been mortgaged to the bank and was due for auction. We packed up all the valuable items. Now they were at the police station, making it easier for us to proceed. Not because we were afraid of them, but we simply didn't want to deal with a bunch of people. Opening the door, the house was a mess, resembling a garbage dump. Wasn't Vivian the one who claimed to be good at cooking and housework? I scoffed and went to the bedroom with a poker face. The jewelry on the dressing table was missing, and there were several fewer handbags. I found a safe under the bed filled with valuable gold and silver jewelry. Thankfully, it was still there. I packed up all the precious items and went to Mary's bedroom, which was locked. After 2 minutes of forceful pushing, the door finally opened. As expected, all the items I had taken were in her room. I didn't hesitate to take everything back, including the bracelet I had given her. She didn't deserve it. In the living room, we moved all the furniture, the sofa, washing machine, and refrigerator. We didn't even spare the bed they slept on, moving everything to my parents' empty house. Now, living with my family gave me a sense of security. Late at night, Mike called. I knew what he was going to say without guessing. However, seeing him unhappy made me sleep soundly. So I picked up the phone. Susan, come back. Let's talk things out, said Mike weakly. He brought this upon himself. Could I endure it? After a long pause, Mike sighed. My mom just made a mistake. She has repented. Do you want to see a son without a mother? You love him so much. Can you bear it? What was there to bear? He never considered that I was his mother. I chuckled softly. Mike, you should move out soon. The house is about to be auctioned. Your mom can make money. Buying a house should be easy. Come back, Susan. Let's live well together. At most, I'll send Vivian away. I trusted him as far as I could throw him. He would never let her go. Besides, he was an accomplice, and I would never forgive them. Fine, first help me repay the debt. Just over $2 million. Your family should be able to come up with it. Upon hearing this, he immediately hung up. After giving him a piece of my mind, I felt a lot better, and slept soundly until morning. The next day, as soon as I arrived at the office, Mike showed up. I knew he wouldn't believe the bankruptcy, but unfortunately, it was true. I showed him everything one by one, and Mike's face became darker and darker. Finally, I handed him a loan agreement of $2 million, looking hopeful, and said, as long as you help me pay back the money, we can live a good life together. Mike suddenly stood up. Susan, with your father being so rich, ask him for help to pay off the debt. then borrow 5 million to start a new company, he suggested. This time, I'll be the general manager and guarantee a big profit. Wondering if someone ugly like him could have such high expectations, I looked into his eyes and said calmly, my father's money has long been invested in my company, now we're drowning in debt. Mike still didn't believe it, but I didn't bother explaining. I started to deal with the handover of employees. Not long after, he sneaked into the finance office. The finance director was on his side, but I had already gained his loyalty. When Mike came out of the finance office, his face was grim. Susan, give me 50,000, and let's get a divorce now, he demanded. At this point, he was still after money. I shook my head. I have nothing to give. Stay or leave. I won't ask you for the allowance I used to give your family, which was quite generous already. When it comes to the son, you're on your own. I have Vivian now. Can't afford to raise 2 children, Mike said casually. What? That was unexpected. Mike wanted to abandon his own son and willingly raise his ex-lover's daughter. I smirked. Did your mother know about it? Did they agree to it? Almost forgot. Your mother should be in custody. Mike's face turned red. It's my own business. I'll decide. Vivian is so young. I won't send her to an orphanage. Hearing that, I almost couldn't resist slapping him. I'll definitely never take Eric. I may have a bit of motherly love, but I've used it all up in my previous life. I sighed. Do you know how much debt I'm in now? How can I afford to raise him? Let your mother raise him. She'll probably be willing. If you don't find her something to do, she'll go cause trouble again. Mike stared at me fiercely. Finally, he said coldly, 8,000 a month for child support. You'll also cover tuition and extra classes. 8,000. You must be dreaming. I held up 3 fingers. 3,000 a month, that's it, nothing more. To be honest, 3,000 was manageable, but forget about the carefree days I used to have. In the end, Mike agreed. He had to. The information leaked by the finance director would not be good for him. If he didn't leave immediately, he would be up to his neck in debt with me. Was Mike one to suffer losses? For sure not. He must be thinking about marrying a wealthy woman again, while he's still young. A month later, I got the divorce papers. Eric no longer referred to me as mom. All he saw was Vivian. Mary smiled and said, you'll definitely make a comeback, and then Eric can inherit your estate. After she finished, she made a cheering motion. I chuckled. It's you who makes money fast. Eric should be inheriting your estate. Mary got angry, left Eric behind, and rushed towards me. I pointed at her nose. One more step forward, and I'll post your naughty photos online for everyone to see. Mary paled instantly. She said pitifully, you have to delete those photos. It's illegal. I can sue you. So inexperienced and loves to play around. I smiled and said, they were taken in public places, not illegal. You better not dance in front of me, otherwise, I won't be nice. Mike glared at me and took his mother away. Good. They dared to provoke me. So let them go to court, and I'll demand child support. I won't make it easy for them to get the money. To celebrate the divorce, I took my parents to the sperm bank, picked out a genetically superior donor. No one's inheriting my estate. Lying on the sofa, caressing my 6-month pregnant belly, I happily watched a melodramatic TV show. Eric called me. Mom, I was wrong. Can you take me and Vivian back? I raised an eyebrow, feeling wronged. Even so, he still wanted to take Vivian away. That's true love. First, tell me what happened, I said. Eric angrily recounted recent events. Turns out, Mike had jumped into a new marriage with a wealthy woman who weighed 200 pounds, was 42 years old, had 2 children, and loved to bully Eric and Vivian. Well, who would have thought Mike liked that kind of scenario? I chuckled as I rubbed my belly. Does your father know about your thoughts? Mike would never allow Vivian to leave. He didn't even want his son in the first place, because of Vivian. Mom, his thoughts don't matter. Where are you living now? I'll bring Vivian over tomorrow, he said. My good eldest son. I teased, you can come, but I won't accept Vivian. If you insist on bringing her, then don't bother. There was silence for a long time on the other end. Mom, I don't mind your poverty. Why can't you accept Vivian? She's so great, glowing all over, Eric said. I patted my chest, took a deep breath, and said calmly, then stay away, leave me alone. I'm your only son. Why won't you listen to me? Eric shouted loudly. I caressed my belly and calmly said, no, you're not anymore. 5 years later, Mike went to prison and was sentenced to life imprisonment. He killed his wife, hoping to inherit her estate, but the woman's children found out and reported him. The body was chopped into pieces, put in the fridge for 2 months, until the kids came back from winter break and discovered it. Mike's excuse was that he went on a trip to Thailand and never came back. Turned out he was right in the fridge all along. The sensational case of spousal murder left countless people shocked. Eric found me with Vivian. Mom, Dad's gone in, now it's up to you to support me, he said. Looking at the two of them, who were so skinny. I calmly said, "Your grandparents are still alive, and although I may not always be prompt with the support, it's always been there. I won't let them in, those two black-hearted people. Who knows if they were accomplices in the rich woman's death?" Eric frowned. "Grandma is sick. She can't take care of us. You're my mom, you should take care of me." I pointed at Vivian. "And what about her? What is she? Why should I take care of her?" Eric stared at me as if I were his enemy. Yet, he still refused to give up Vivian. Vivian wanted to kneel and beg, but Eric pulled her away. "Vivian, don't beg her. Let her get old. I want to see her suffer." 6 months later, both Eric and Vivian contracted AIDS. It was said to be passed on by his grandma. His grandma passed it to his grandpa, who passed it to Vivian, and Vivian passed it to Eric. The whole family got sick together. This disease is no joke, so I sold the house immediately, moved to a new city. Some people, when they have no way out, start to take revenge on society. It's terrifying. Apart from the monthly 3,000, I didn't give them a penny more. Now, I live happily, with my parents by my side and a caring partner. There's no need to confront such people head-on. As expected, not long after, I saw Eric's name in the news. He was contaminating food with his blood, causing havoc everywhere. Eric even infected many girlfriends with the virus. He even persuaded Vivian to join him in seeking revenge on society. In the end, they were locked up in a special prison. Some people are just inherently bad. I heard that Eric had been looking for me everywhere. If I hadn't run away quickly, I couldn't have imagined. Luckily, in this life, my world is beautiful.